back to 3 Month Journal. Today I'm going to be updating my reading journal because I haven't touched it since May and there's quite a few books I've read in the meanwhile. I'm going to be talking about the books and what I liked or disliked about it, but there will be no spoilers here unless you want to pause and read the reviews I've written in my book. Otherwise it's all spoilers free from here. The first book is Artemis by Weir, which I read in May. This book was seriously not my thing at all, and so obviously written by a white man. The female character was badly written and made me feel more like a teenage boy than an actual woman, and the writing was very mature in my opinion. Which is such a shame because the plot was good and reminded me of The Expanse, which is one of my favorite books of all time. I was also not very satisfied with the ending. I felt like it was very weak compared to the rest of the story and it could have been better in my opinion. So the 1 star I think is very well deserved in my opinion. I'm already not a big fan of sci-fi and this one was definitely not one of them at all. Which is it's such a shame because I really enjoyed The Martian as a movie and I was really looking forward to Project Hail Mary. So now I'm wondering if I even want to watch it in the first place. Our next book are The Pumpkin Spice Café and The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, both of them by Laurie Gilmore. It's a series of books that is set in the same town with the same characters interacting from one book to the other. I gave The Pumpkin Spice Café 3 stars. It was fine really, and I did enjoy the romance even if I'm not a big fan of the insta-love that most of those books have. It obviously went through the miscommunication trope and I'm not a big fan of those, but I would have liked something a bit more original maybe. The autumn vibes of this book were on point though and I really enjoyed that. It felt really comforting and really cozy. The Cinebook. On the opposite side, The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore was not my thing at all and I only gave it 1 star. First off, this book lied to me because it pretended to be an autumn book but everything happened over the summer break. And if I'm honest, both protagonists were very annoying to me and I hated how the female character was some kind of weird spinster character just because she was 30. I thought that was a bit ridiculous even for such a book, and I really cringed at the male character because it was really immature and I really didn't vibe with their relationship at all. I understand that a lot of people love the romance book and how predictable it is, but for me it was just falling flat every step of the way and I really did not enjoy myself. When I was reading The Pumpkin Spice Café, I was thinking about continuing the entire series, but after The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, I just gave up on the offer and I decided to pick something else instead because I was really not enjoying any of that. Next up in May was Iron Widow by Xiran Zhao, followed by its sequel, Heavenly Tyrant. As you can see on the screen, I'm looking for different papers that match the color of the book covers so everything can look harmonious on the page. I found this really beautiful burnt orange and this pinkish red that works perfectly with both covers. I will also add the same colors at the bottom to act as a frame for an illustration by Alexiel April on Instagram. Iron Widow was maybe my favorite read of the year so far and I give it 5 stars. First off, it's got those Pacific Rim vibes that I love and I really enjoyed the feminine rage of the main female character and the fact that it was a throuple with both of the main male characters. I loved everything about these books, from the plot to the characters, but mostly the commentary it did about the place of women in our society and the expectation on each gender, be it to protect for male characters or to submit for female characters. It was such a blast to read it and I really couldn't put it down, to the point where I was only 20% in when I decided to order the sequel because I didn't want to put the book down and I wanted to start on the sequel immediately. And as you can see on the screen right now, my spelling is awful and I absolutely do not know how to write Tyrant. you spotted before me, well done, because it's going to take me a very long while to notice the mistake. Anyway, if you have a look at the dates also, it took me a whole 4 days to be able to finish Iron Widow because I was going so fast, and yet it took me a full month to go through Heavenly Tyrant, and I only gave it 2 stars. It was such a disappointment to me, especially compared to the first book and how much I loved it. You can barely tell it's a sequel because everything is different in this book. The characters, personality, the plot, even the themes and the style of the writing are all different, to the point where you can barely say it's a sequel. It also decided to be some kind of lecture about communism to me, which I really didn't like at all. I felt like I was lectured about it all through the book, and that it was more of a political intrigue than anything else. I felt like the difference between this one and the first book were too big for me, and I really did not enjoy the ending. Also, it's supposed to be a duology, but it ends in a cliffhanger that tells me there's going to be a next book, and I'll be honest, I'm not sure I'm going to be reading it. Also, this is the point where I realize I can't spell for shit and I'm trying to fix my mistakes, but for some reason my white pen was working against me and was really challenging to be using, so it doesn't look perfect, but I'm the only one who is going to be seeing those pages, so it's fine. And finally, I'm adding the dates I've been reading those books onto the page, so I've got all my stats in one place. Here we go, 4 days, 1 full month. Such a difference, isn't it? Next up is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soul by Schwab. I'm going to start the decoration with some night touches, such as the moon and the planets, and I'm also going to add some really nice stickers from 2 artists that were in the sticky subscriptions a few months back. One is the clock, because those vampires are running against time, and the other ones are 2 portraits of female characters which I felt really fitted the page. And you will see at some point I will write one of the quotes from the text, which is, "Why can feel lonely without being alone." I felt it was really appropriate. The problem being I didn't quite have enough space, and it's a bit like when you're trying to do a happy birthday banner, you start with big letters and then you just try to cram the other ones at the end. I'm really not happy with the way it looks, and I try to fix it, and I feel like I've only done worse at the end. If you know anything about me and my reading taste, you will know that I'm a massive V.E. Schwab fan. I've got an entire shelf on my bookcase dedicated to her books. I've got some of the books in 3 different languages. I'm collecting the different covers. Like, it's big. So it was such a disappointment when I read this book. I think I came in with too high expectations because everything about the book was ticking my boxes. We're talking about female characters, we're talking about queer relationship, historical fantasy, toxic relationships. Like, on paper, it should have been the perfect book for me, and it just didn't work. I really enjoyed the beginning, even if it took forever for the plot to start, but something was just not clicking with me, and I'm not sure quite what it was. I think I've got some suspicions, but that's kind of a spoiler, so I will not be talking about it on this video. Just know that I'm very disappointed, and talking to some of our friends, so were they, even though we did love a lot of the books from Schwab before. So I think I just have to live with this disappointment and just move on from there, and I'm really hoping that next book works better for me. I still have 2 other books I think that I need to read, so I will go back to that eventually to just have a better positive of our books, I guess. Oh well, it just happens sometimes, and we just have to live with it. And then comes July, and what I can only describe as Superman summer. I went to see the movie, I absolutely loved it, and I wanted to keep being in that universe for a little bit more, but I wanted to know more about the ladies. So I've read Supergirl, Woman and Tomorrow. If you are not aware, it's the comics that is the base for the movie for Supergirl that's going to come next year, and I gave it 4 stars because it was such a blast. really loved how Kara was portrayed in the comics. She was so full of contradictions, and she's portrayed so well in this book. There's a quest for vengeance that is so good to follow, and I love how both her and the other main character are evolving through the book, both as people and also in their relationship with each other. I think the choice to tell a story from another point of view was very bold, and I feel like if it's going to be the case in the movie, it's going to be a bit controversial. Some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it, but personally I really loved it, especially because it makes the soups like those bigger than life characters that they really are, because they are so much stronger, so much better than humans. I really did have a lot that I hated about this book, and I got that in 2 days, and I just couldn't put that down at all. It was such a great read, especially as an introduction to the story of supergirls and adventures in space. Also, crypto is in it, and that's always a plus now. And then after that, I decided to dive into a bit more into Lois Lane, and I read Enemy of the People. It is a series of comics that follow Lois Lane as she is working as a journalist and trying to uncover some mysteries. I feel that this was not as much of a standalone as other comics could be, and for me it was a bit confusing because I've never really read for DC before, and I was a bit confused about what was happening and the storyline referenced in different comic books. But I still loved it, even though there was a bit too many plot lines going on. I think there were 3 different plot lines that were happening at the same time, but it was okay. I really enjoyed the little glimpse into Lois' life with Clark that we got and their relationship, especially the difference between being in love with Clark and being in love with Superman. That was really cool to see, and I just love them together, so I just love those stories. And finally, for this update, we've got Mistborn and The Weir of Ascension, both by Brandon Sanderson. I've been meaning to start any of his books recently, and I really wanted to try them, especially because someone recommended them to me and was like, you need to read them. So I took the time to download and read them, and I'll be honest, didn't really know what to expect, but didn't really work for me. Let's talk about Mistborn first. It really was not what I was expecting, and I really enjoyed the plot once it really started. By the end of it, I would say the 5 last chapters, I could not put the book down, and I stayed up until 2 a.m. to finish the book. It was amazing. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. And I really love Vin as a character, and I really enjoyed the relationship with Calcia, with this kind of father-daughter relationship they had going on. I thought it was very well done. I just wish the other characters were just as interesting. I'll be honest with you, I could not remember which was which. There were so many random, generic white dudes in there who all had a different power, but they all looked the same to me. It was just a dude with a name, and I feel like that was the weakness of the book. Like, it couldn't get me to care about those characters at all. And it's a real shame because based on Vin, based on Calcia, I know that Sanderson can write a good, compelling character, so I just don't understand what didn't work with any of the second characters in the book. Also, no women. Like, it's a bit ridiculous at this point because there are so many secondary characters, and it would have been so easy to have 1 or 2 of them being women, but that's not the case, and I feel like that's such a weakness from the book. Then came The Weir of Ascension, and this one was so frustrating. I could see exactly where the plot was going from the very beginning. It's very obvious. The title makes it even more obvious. You know exactly what is supposed to happen, and then it does not happen. It takes forever to get there. There's some political plot that is not nearly as interesting as it's meant to be. It's very repetitive, it's very boring, and I feel like I could have skipped a good 30% of the middle of the book and I would have been just fine. It was just so bad, and that's why I just didn't enjoy it quite as much. And also, that's the second book in a row now that Vin is one of the only 2 female characters, if we're being very generous, and she never interacts with any other female character except for maybe 1 or 2 scenes. Like, please give that girl a friend. I'm begging you. Please, Sanderson. I'm not asking for much. And we are done now, so I went back to the beginning of my book to have a look and to be filling up the pages with my different reading challenges and reading trackers. So one of them is the challenge, which is to be reading 50 books in 1 year. I'll be honest with you, there's no way I can do 50, but I'm aiming for 25 at the very least. And the other one is just my bookcase, where I put all the different books I've read and make it look very pretty. So I'm going back a few pages every time to double check that I'm putting the books in the correct order, and also I'm color coding them by the months I've been reading. I'm taking a bit of time with that because I want it to look neat and perfect, and also I don't have nearly enough highlighters to be able to do 12 different colors, so I'm just trying my best at this point. I've been working on that journal for 2 hours. I was just expecting to be done. And for example, this pink here, way too bright, hate it. But I didn't use it before, so I'm using it now. And finally, I will go through my fantasy bingo. And as I was going through it, I realized I've put vampires twice. So I'm only going to be coloring it once, and I'm going to be hoping that I get another book with vampires. But as it is, we've got one word title for Mistborn, multiply point of view for the Well of Ascension, we've got vampires for Bury Your Bones, and we've got the Chosen One for Mistborn again. I could have filmed more books. For example, I could have done mystery, historical fantasy, something like this, new offer to me also, but I didn't want to use too many of the colors at the same time for the same books. So here we are, the end of it. Thank you very much for following, and I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye bye!